What's up, everyone? This is Real Talk with Casey and JoJo. What's up, Casey?
JoJo, what's going on?
What's going on? We are doing season 3, episode 2, and today we are talking about sex, baby.
Specifically,
let's talk about sex. What are we talking about specifically?
So we're going to talk about hashtag no cum challenge.
No cum challenge.
We're going to get into some deep shit, but on a very high level. So if you guys are interested, drop a comment, let us know, and we can get into more detail about why. But yeah, we're going to talk about basically withholding the seed, if you will, not orgasming, at least externally,
but internally,
working towards an internal orgasm for many, many reasons. So wanted to kick off today's podcast with a little quote, because I think that this just puts in a very succinct way kind of what we're doing. It's a journey. And so this quote is, it's not about what we are capable of today, how smart, skilled, or skinny we are, but how willing we are to work to become, how curious, committed, and courageous we are. There is no pass-fail in the game of life, only participants and bystanders. Let's not let our judgment of ourselves keep us from playing the game of life at a high level. Becoming is better than being. So I like that last sentence, right? Becoming is better than being.
Explain that.
So as we've learned, as Joanna and I have gone through this spiritual journey, our own personal sort of enlightenment journey, we came across essentially this process. It's an alchemical process within the body. It's a physiological process where you essentially raise your consciousness to the pineal gland and the brain. And essentially you basically, long story short, it's not dopamine. I just lost my train of thought.
DMT?
No, but what's the precursor? Melatonin. So melatonin is naturally produced in your body, and essentially melatonin is a precursor to DMT. Well, DMT is produced naturally in our bodies. Said that DMT production is at the highest between the hours of 3 and 4 at night when you're sleeping. So the whole purpose is that you can reach a stage in your brain, activate the pineal gland, release this DMT, and basically have some magical experiences. So that's kind of the end all be all goal. So becoming is better than being. So what that means is that, being would be in this context, we all have sort of learned growing up that, when you have sex, the whole purpose is to orgasm. If you're not orgasming, what's the point, right? To some degree.
That's the goal.
That's the goal, right? Well, that would be being, right? For us, or for most people, that's being. You're in a state of being. It's not challenging to do that. Anybody can make that happen, I guess, especially for a guy, maybe a little bit harder for a girl, depending on your partner. But at the end of the day, that's being. So we're at a stage of our lives, and hopefully you are too, where we want to become something, right? And becoming, it takes effort, it takes dedication, it takes a process, it takes understanding, it takes knowledge, it takes deeper understanding to become rather than be. Right. And we get that confused with being in the sense that, being in the now. That's not the kind of being we're talking about. We're talking about being in your skill set, being comfortable, right? We don't want to be comfortable. We want to strive to be better. So becoming is better than being. So let's get it. Let's talk about it.
Okay, I want to talk about this because that's basically what that is. So there's the physiological aspect, right? But there's, we could look at it as, the states of consciousness. From earth to water to air to fire, that's spirit. So we're looking at beta, alpha, theta, delta, gamma, and it's basically the renewal of the mind and how we are at a state physically where we are at earth, right? This physical earth dimension. But when you go into water, into meditation, into that stillness, into that silence within you, then you can reach a place of no thought in air, and then have a renewal of the mind with fire. So by doing that through meditation and consciously, you also then mirror that into a physiological, anatomy aspect of that. Your anatomy goes through the same cycle.
Yeah, hit him up with that forearm again. So what's this?
Earth.
No, but the brain.
Beta.
So you didn't explain this, but explain. So brain waves, right?
Right.
Occur at different levels. Beta being the
fastest. So, well, what do you mean? The what?
Well, just explain brainwaves and what that means in terms of raising your consciousness.
I think I just did. like you're in the earth plane, meaning you're
Yeah,
active,
but
your mind is active.
you didn't explain. Yeah, you didn't explain it in terms of brain
Okay,
waves
so
and
your
raising the
mind is
conscious.
active here because you're looking at the physical world, the reality. So your mind is going, right? You're distracted by this physical
So
realm
that would be like the awake state, the state that we're in when we're working,
when we're
during the
awake.
day,
Yeah,
right?
and we're just constantly going. This is the state where you go into water, which means you go into meditation, you go within.
And what's that brainwave? Beta,
Alpha.
alpha.
So this is also truth. Water is truth. So you find the truth when you go within, when you meditate. This is also John the Baptist, right? Like baptizing you with water, basically saying, I can only make you go within, but the rest is going to have to be done within you, right? Because once you reach air, which is theta, you reach a state where you have no thought. You're now really crossing over to the right side where you're more on the intuitive side, the spiritual side versus the logical thinking brain. So passing over to air, this is where you meet Christ in the air. So this is really just a that moment before you can reach the new mind fire, which is delta. And then it goes into gamma, but those are the states of frequency. So you actually go through delta like when you're asleep, right? In the deep state of sleep. So these are just your states of consciousness, right? And here's where you want to get to, which is spirit, which is ether, which is all that is.
Yeah, so we're essentially at our fastest brain waves down at the bottom.
We're using my tattoo for this.
And then we're slowing those brain waves down, getting into the highest state of consciousness, right? This also kind of shows a chart of what happens awake state and then your deep dreaming state, right?
Until you have this whole DMT experience of being one with all. It's like the Wi-Fi connection, and then you finally like, oh, I'm connected to all that is. So what does this have to do with sex?
Well, I mean, the whole point is that, again, we started off with the quote, becoming is better than being. Now, there's, not to get into all this, but there's many aspects of this journey, right? When we're trying to renew the mind, when we're trying to activate the pineal gland, it doesn't, sex is just one piece of the puzzle, right? But we want to focus on talking about that and just talking a little bit about our experiences and some of the pros and cons and just kind of what we've been through, because we've been on this journey for what, probably a year and a half now, in terms of off and on kind of messing with this. So, I mean, again, exercise, the way you eat, the way you think, meditation, sleep, this process, the no-come challenge, retaining the seed, if you will, all that goes into kind of raising that consciousness. But just speaking directly on the seed aspect. So no-come challenge, why do we do that? Why are we doing that? What is the whole point of retaining the seed?
Because physiologically, this can't happen unless there's enough oil in the lamp. So can you explain that scientifically, please?
Yeah, so let's talk about that from a physiological standpoint. So we've essentially, our brain, Aries, our cerebrum, is it produces most of the electricity of our body. Now that electricity travels down our spine, but it first has to pass through the cerebellum, right? The cerebellum located right in the back of the head. Now the cerebellum that's your emotional center. So all of the negative emotions, fear, anger, stress,
worry,
essentially we're in that state quite a bit. Well, what happens is the cerebellum essentially that energy will get diluted as it passes through the cerebellum, trying to make its way through the spine. So we're energetic beings, right? Our body is electrical. So the goal is, again, we first have to get control of the cerebellum and our emotions. Meditation helps do that. But assuming that we're there, right? We've got the cerebellum, we've got our emotions in check, we're sort of balanced from an emotional standpoint. That energy or that electrical signal then is free to travel down the spine and sort of energize the rest of the body. Now from there, you've got a sacral pump that basically pumps from the brain all the way down to the sacrum, and it's a loop. Typically, I think it takes 12 hours, I think, for that CSF, the cerebral spinal fluid, to make a complete loop from top to bottom. Well, the no-come challenge or orgasming, once you get to the bottom, that seed is born in the sacrum. Yes. And the goal is to raise that seed through the CSF, through the cerebral spinal fluid, back up into the brain, into the pineal gland, and then, the pineal gland producing melatonin, which I guess then gets turned into DMT, right? Melatonin is the precursor for DMT.
Right, but if you secrete, wait, is that the right word?
Ejaculate?
whatever, like if you let it out,
if you let it out,
it can't go back up. So there, that whole recycling thing doesn't happen. It stops. And so you don't get to experience the elevation part.
Yeah. So just like as above, so below, right? The cerebellum blocks the electrical signal from coming down, doesn't block the CSF from transferring, but it doesn't allow the body to sort of get the electrical signal that it needs to work the way it needs to work alchemically, right? So orgasming essentially is the same effect as the cerebrum down below. So when you orgasm, you're releasing a lot of like precious fluids, right? Fluids that your body needs and that your brain needs to sort of complete that loop on the CSF. So now's where we get into like the sex talk, right?
Right. Because this is the sacred energy exchange. Because now we're looking at sex not from a physical animal nature point of view, but we're looking at sex in a more spiritual, energetic type of way, which is the difficult part, right? That's the part where we go, wait, what? We're so used to being in our animal nature when it comes to sex. We're so used to this goal that we have at the end of the tunnel, right? But now you just want me to feel the energy and stop when I'm at my, when I'm about to, like,
Yeah, that's exactly right.
That's how you control yourself.
And so we tried this. I don't remember when. What, about a year ago? 6 months ago?
When you ask me times, I have no idea. I don't know what year we're on, what month we're on.
We went 90 days, right? That was our initial sort of test run with this.
Yeah.
And that initial 90 days, it was more about going through the motions and just checking a box every day and going, yay, I did it. I didn't, it's the equivalent of not smoking or trying to quit a habit, right? Like you're like, yay, I did it. And it was more about checking a box rather than
truly understanding
the process.
Yeah.
And we went 90 days and it was hard and it was super difficult.
It got easier though. Like
it did get
in
easier.
In the middle, and then towards the end, it got harder again.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah, no pun intended on that one. Right? But yeah, but let's talk about the kind of the experience, right? And kind of what happens, because one of our big things is we talk about programming, right? In terms of sex, that's the biggest programming, is that we're programmed that the orgasm is the goal, right? Well, I'm challenging you to maybe think that yeah, that's awesome and the orgasm is great, but that's keeping you in bondage. Right? It's keeping you in bondage in a lot of ways. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about in a little bit more detail. So what do we mean by that? Hit us up with an example of bondage, when we stay in bondage. So a good example,
go ahead.
A good example of bondage, right? Is that when you're having sex with your partner and you have the end all be all goal of orgasming, that is the first sort of program. Is you're programmed to think that needs to happen. Well, when you take that out of the picture, it's going to change your world, because again, if you're used to having sex with that end all be all goal being the goal.
Can I say something?
Please jump in.
That's like, if you didn't do it, then what? Right? Then it's like,
yeah,
how good are you? How do you know that the person was satisfied? How do you know that you completed your goal if there is no goal, right? It's kind of like a perplexed type of feeling of, wait, there is no goal. Well, then how do I know anything, right? But then that's where the energetic part comes in and the dancing begins.
Yes. Yeah. So like there's almost like withdrawal symptoms that you go through. I remember I was like irritated. I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, this is like, when do we stop? How do you know when to stop? Like,
it hurts when I stop.
Are you happy? Like, are you not happy? I don't want to, it's very frustrating. And I think that's indicative of how programmed we are. So, that first sort of 90-day attempt was more about breaking the programming,
the conditioning,
and the conditioning, and understanding that in order for you to really become in this practice, you have to understand that your whole understanding of how you practice sex and your understanding of sex has to shift, right? It has to shift, just like you mentioned the left brain and right brain, our left brain being our thinking mind, our conscious mind, right? Our right brain being our spiritual mind. You have to take sex from the left,
you got it!
from the left, from the right, from the left. God, you messed me up.
I jinxed you.
From the left to the right. And it's a difficult step to make, because again, when you're used to kind of getting to that point, when do you stop? Where do you go?
Right.
What do you do?
So what do we do?
What do you mean? Are you asking me?
An example. So like, let's talk. Like, it's been more of a dance of understanding. You can kind of just tell, like, when you're at that point, right? And then as a couple, you have to be on the
On
same
the same
page
page.
to
Yeah.
know that, because, you know, a lot of times I just want to keep going, but then it's like, well, if I know that we're on the same page of not doing that, I have to stop as well if I know that he's almost there. And vice versa, right? We both have to kind of feel out where we are. So it's like a dance. It's an energetic dance, where you can just feel where they are, and then it becomes more of a meditative type of sex, which I know sounds boring, but it's not, because you can
Yeah.
feel everything on a whole nother level. And not to say that you can't go down to your animalistic nature and act in that way, but then it's kind of like crossing over and going, okay, like let's not just finish here, let's go back up here. So we kind of dance back and forth between that meditative type of sex and then what we're used to, because we're still kind of weaning off.
Yeah, and I think for us, like in our own personal journey, I mean, we've always been very compatible from a sexual standpoint, just energetically,
Right.
right? So I mean, you know, we've always, and it's been very egoic in the certain in the sense of it's been almost animalistic throughout our entire relationship, right? In terms
Not the
of,
whole time,
no,
but
I mean, but yeah, but I mean, it's very natural in that sense,
right.
right? Like passionate, I guess is
Okay,
probably
yeah.
the best way to put
Yeah.
it. And you know,
Passionate and
when it's
animalistic.
yeah, but they're kind of one and the same, because
Kind of.
I
You can
think
be passionate and not animalistic.
yes, very true, true. But I think that our history though has primarily been more animalistic than
Both.
and passionate, a little bit
I
of
think
both.
both.
Okay.
I just think
Or
we've been more on the like softer, passionate, also like making love more than effing, right? Like that's been a bigger play than
yeah,
most couples.
yeah, for sure, for
So,
sure.
you know, when you're talking to the masses here, it's like if it's just animalistic, then they're completely taking away the lovemaking, which is not.
Correct.
And
Right.
we have been kind of both
Yeah.
on that
Yeah.
subject. Okay, move on.
So you know, when you start this practice and you begin to, you know, embrace this challenge, and again, the whole purpose is to get to a point of enlightenment. But the journey to that enlightenment, at least our experience has been, is you have to have a renewed mind and a renewed expectation of sex.
And self-control, which
Yes.
teaches you self-control, because it's not just controlling yourself, right? But because you've learned to control that, like if you can control that, as in like not like you're about to and you stop and you breathe and you don't, then you can pretty much control your emotions, your thoughts, everything, right? You can control anything. So it's more of like,
Yeah.
you know what? Oh, I look at you different because you have self-control. Like, yeah, that's sexy to me now. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like if somebody doesn't have self-control, then I'm
No doubt.
like,
Well, and I think that like there's a ton of ancillary benefits to this process, right? And that's one of them.
mhm,
Is that, yeah, I mean, but also is, yeah, you look at the other person with more respect,
right,
because they're able to stop themselves, and you kind of do it together as a couple, right?
right,
Like, you know, I mean, again, if she is reaching that point, I as her partner have to respect that and sort of allow her to enter her own space and dial back whatever it is I'm doing and help her breathe through
yes,
that process. You know, and it's incredibly bonding to do that, because you know you're putting your trust in that person, and I'm releasing her to do what she needs to do and encouraging her on the way, so you kind of get that benefit as well.
you got
But
me
there
over here breathing.
but you know, but there's some other benefits as well to this. I mean, there's definitely a strengthening um of the process, in the sense that you do go from more of an animalistic nature in terms of, I guess you said fucking, you know, to, because you can't do that, right? Like, because everything becomes hypersensitive.
Right,
You know, the longer you go and the more you withhold, hypersensitivity kicks in. But it's cool because the natural process of that hypersensitivity is you have to slow it down,
right.
right? You have to breathe. So it becomes more meditative in that
Like you
sense,
gotta really raise it.
out of necessity,
Yeah,
because you know, if you go into that animalistic like fucking state, you know, you probably aren't going to last very long, and you're probably going to lose the challenge rather quickly. So that, you know, again, that's another ancillary benefit. But I think,
don't
you
they
know,
do this in November? The no,
Yeah,
the
I
no
don't know.
nut
No nut challenge.
challenge.
Yeah, but there's also another benefit as well. And I just lost my train of thought. This happens to me constantly.
Is it because I said no nut
I think
challenge?
so, because I was about to say it and now I'm lost.
Sorry. I'm so sorry.
So yeah, and there's a deeper bond, right, that comes into play. So we talked about this in a lot of detail last week, kind of in preparation for this, is that anybody can go out, like if I'm infidelity, right? Infidelity is a huge problem,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and you get into a situation where if you're practicing this challenge with your partner, infidelity becomes almost like obsolete, right? Like you hold your partner on such high regard that I only am doing this with my partner. And it's hard to understand until you practice it, because of the aforementioned things that we described, like having to like hold it and having to breathe through it and having to have that self-control.
And you're just gonna go with someone else and waste it, and
Right, like
start
so
over.
so in
What?
a lot of ways, like it really makes you hyper focused on your partner. At least it's been my experience, is that if you're in a situation where there's an opportunity for infidelity, like it's just completely out of your mind, right? Like you're so into your partner because it's something that you guys share on such a deeper level. Now you can argue that, hey, sex should be that way anyway, but I don't know that it is. Like with pornography and the way sex is like just
It's
shown,
not sacred.
it's not sacred. And that's the sacredness of this process, is the sharing with your partner. So again, the ancillary benefit is that as you practice this with your partner, there's a deeper level of respect that happens and a deeper level of trust that occurs as you kind of go through this process. I mean, what do you think?
I agree.
I agree.
No, I mean, I think that it's true. It's true. But it's also psychological. It also starts to break down your own insecurities. Your insecurities start to rise because you start feeling like, do they even want to have sex with me if there's not going to be an end all, right? Like you just,
Yeah, for sure.
you go, well, what am I good for, or whatever, I don't know, just things will start. Am I enough? Would you rather go to somebody that isn't doing this? I don't know, just random thoughts that come up that really just touch on your insecurity. So it in a way, it also helps you with healing your whole self-worth issues, and then at the same time mirrors that to your partner. And we talked about this before in one of our classes, but we had kind of hit that place of, well, I don't know how good I am now, because I don't know, it just kind of flips your world around, and you're like, oh, I don't know what to do with sex. But seriously, and so you're very confused. And so what we did is that we just basically got completely naked, and massaged each other with blindfolds, and sat through the emotion of feeling these thoughts come up, of the insecurity come up, what is she thinking, what, that's what you were saying, what is she thinking, what, all these things of, oh, what, the lights are completely bright on, and so you're kind of in that monkey brain, right? Until you go through it, you face it, you release it. And
it's like being naked in public.
Yeah, it's like finally, like, I don't know what that's like, but
I don't either, but
you finally feel like, oh, you made me lose my track with the naked thing. You feel like, okay, if I'm going to enjoy this, if I'm going to be in the present moment, why do I want to spend my time with all these worry thoughts or insecurity thoughts? Because then I'm not really here and now and enjoying it. So it kind of forces you to shift your psyche and release the worry and the fear and the insecurities, so that you can be in the now, so that you can feel everything and really just like release all of that. And so you create a deeper bond with that person, and vice versa. So you just create this deeper bond of appreciation.
Yeah, and I use the word animalistic, but I think it's, if we want to call it lower nature sex, for lack of a better term. So like, for us as an example, like I've sort of historically been like the lights, at least the light on, because I want to see this, like, right, like look at this girl, like I want to see this girl, you know what I mean? Like
my mom watches this.
I don't care. I mean, it's sex, bro. Like we talking about fucking.
I know, but
challenge.
I'm just saying,
I don't care. It is what it is. I mean, like, hopefully you're attracted to your partner and you want to see them, right? Like
Yeah.
you want to see their body, you want to see the, the
How many
intricacies of
people
the
have
action.
the lights off because they don't want to be seen because they feel insecure?
Well, and that's so,
A lot, I
that's kind of where
bet.
I'm going with this, is that, when we started this practice, the lights need to be off, because, at least for me, because, again, if you're used to doing things and having your senses, sort of activated, if you will, like if I'm in my
Hyper
senses,
aware.
yeah, if I'm into my eyesight and I'm focused on seeing things, then suddenly if you turn the lights off,
Now you're more into your energy
where
field.
where am I going to go with that? I can't see
Yep.
nothing.
Now it's about feeling.
Yeah, and that was a bit of an adjustment, because, again, it's more about the energetic exchange. It's more about, the sacredness of it. And for me specifically, and I think for you too, is that, when you turn the lights off and you go from closing your eyes, you go from not being visually stimulated. It's just like, when people lose a sense, like lose their sight or lose their
Everything
hearing.
else becomes more,
Right.
yeah,
Everything else
intensifies.
gets intensified. So your other senses increase. And so that's a bit of I think, an adjustment period too. Now, yeah, for the people that are doing it with the lights off already, that what you said is a perfect example. Maybe you need to turn the lights on, and maybe you need to experience and see your partner for the beauty
Because
that they
think about it, we all have like issues with like, oh, I'm getting fat, or I'm like, my cellulite is this
Yeah.
way or whatever, right? But shouldn't we be in a state with our person of unconditional acceptance of one another? Like, I should be able to just be you should be completely fine with being butt naked with your partner, and however you're feeling, be okay, because they're accepting you for who you are. But
Yeah, no
if you're
doubt.
constantly like covering, turning the lights off, we have this thing where, with the lights you can dim them, and we're like, do you want the 30-year-old lights or the 40-year-old light? Like,
Yeah.
you change in your ages, and your body changes too. But if you're kind of hiding that, you're hiding an aspect of yourself with your partner, and that can kind of cause momentum to build, or like for it to grow, where you're hiding more and more of yourself, and you're not allowing your partner to raise his or her acceptance kind of level. Because you also have to be able to be like, set your boundaries. You also have to be able to be like, okay, this is me, this is who I am, do you accept it? If you don't do that, how can they accept it?
Right. Yeah, no doubt. And too, like when you start, if you guys start practicing this, be patient with yourself. Understand that you're going to experience some things that you've probably never felt before. You're going to be frustrated, because I'm telling you, man, like when you go from, an orgasm being the end all be all of sex, and then you're like, I don't know, like, are we
Santos
good?
Bonacci explained it. We're basically indoctrinated into Black Tantra, and our goal is to get to white Tantra. And so we are in this gray Tantra area of, we're trying to get to white, but we're trying to decondition ourselves from the Black. So we're just kind of here, on our way becoming, and
Right.
and that's hard when you're in the middle, because you feel like a tug of war. You feel like, when you're confused and you're just kind of stuck, it's that stuck feeling. It's that I'm in the middle of a transformation feeling. I keep thinking of the number 5, like 5 is in the middle of transformation, and that's kind of where we're at, just extended in a longer period of time. So it is a huge journey, and not one that you can just flip the lights and boom, you're there. It's quite a journey, but
Yeah.
we're planting seeds of just the information, right? Knowledge is power. If you have the knowledge of understanding that we have been conditioned to be at a low state of consciousness, physiologically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, then you have to understand that you have to be the one to empower yourself to become more empowered, since they took our power away, and empower yourself to rise past all the conditioning and get to your true self.
Well said. That tattoo's already coming in handy.
I
Man.
love it.
It's
I
like
love
boom,
it.
boom,
I
boom,
just got
boom.
it
Illustration.
yesterday, guys.
Girl calls me up. I'm getting a tattoo. I said, what? Because we usually go together, right?
Yeah.
Like, wait, hold on. I'm not that. You didn't invite me? You're
No,
going
I
by
just
yourself?
happened to
That's some
stop by to
bullshit.
see if they were available, and they were, and I did it. Yay.
Yeah, but
The
if
whole
you,
thing is a talking piece for real.
no doubt. And if you guys, again, if you're interested in hearing more about the sacred secretion, if you're interested in us doing talks more on the pineal gland and kind of what that is and how it all
Then they
works.
should go to the QE Academy, because that's where we
Yes,
really teach all of
no doubt.
this.
Thank you.
Actually, I know you're about to like give them some stuff. No, we teach all of this already there, at a very profound level. Like, it's esoteric mysticism, high level science, you know what I mean? Like, really getting it into and blending it all together, finding the common denominator and understanding ourselves truly,
Yeah.
and working with peeling those layers. And we help our members do that as well.
Because it's funny because we've had this conversation with different couples, and it's hilarious. I think the girls I think are more like, okay, yeah, I can get with that.
And the
Guys
guys are like, I don't think
shit,
so.
man,
That ain't for me,
if
man.
I go a week or two, it's like my head's gonna explode. No pun intended.
So let's leave them off with a take action plan, right? Like a action call. Hashtag no come challenge, right? So if you've watched this and you feel like participating, even if it is for one day, right? Even if it's for 2 days, a week, whatever it is, please come back and comment below on this and let us know your journey. And if you even want, just to talk about it, I do have a free 30-minute consultation for first timers, somewhere. I'll put the link below.
To the academy?
No, it's my free consult call.
Yeah.
If I haven't met anybody and, they just have like, they want to talk and see
like what it's
where
about.
they are and what's about. Yeah.
But I want to at least leave off with this. I mean, you've got to understand that this process, like not the no come challenge, is a process, right? Just like we talked about, becoming is better than being. It's a journey. It's not something that you're going to have obstacles. You're going to get frustrated. You're going to be like, this is dumb as hell. Why am I doing this? But you have to get to the point where you understand
why you're doing it,
because the why is the most powerful thing.
Yes.
And the why is the renewal of the mind. The why is the strength, the self-control,
is the getting out of the matrix.
Yes, and it carries over, and we don't have enough time to talk about all the ins and outs of like the ancillary benefits to this, but there's a lot of gifts that you receive by retaining the seed.
I'm going to mention one.
Hit it.
Manifestation. So because this is coming from, the place of our sacral, the place of creation, the place where we create children, where we create worlds, this is our manifestation power. Whatever we create, we kind of manifest into our reality. And therefore, if we are not releasing our creative juices, right, and we are retaining them, then we are more powerful energetically with whatever it is that we think and create. We then manifest. So this is where you get a lot of your manifestation powers to kind of enhance. They become more enhanced when you start practicing this, and then you start seeing the fact that works, and you're like, okay, I need to continue to do more of this, because then your life just becomes part of this flowing, synchronistic, happy, everything I want, boom, it's right there, it falls into place. How could you not want that? Once you see and feel and live that way, there's no looking back at the old way.
Doubt. Yeah, and again, just set your expectations low, have a very growth mindset when you go into this. Again, knowing you're going to get frustrated, knowing it's going to be very difficult, but I promise you, if you hang tight and embrace this process, you'll experience some new things in your relationship that you never have before. And I joke with Joanne all the time. I'm like, yo, I don't understand, you don't need Viagra if you're not ejaculating, right? Shit just magically works on its own all the time, because
it's being overused, and that's why it's not working.
Yeah, that's a whole different conversation. but yeah, I mean, it strengthens you in many different ways. Too many ways to discuss, but it does. And believe us on that. Again, let us know your journey. If you started off, have that conversation.
Or just even the thought of it. Like if you have a conversation with your partner and they're like, hell no, just comment below and they're like, my partner ain't ready.
Yeah, which is fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, hit it up, no come challenge. Do your best, try your best, withhold, and wait and see what happens. That's good shit.
Yes, we're out of here. Peace.